had an important role in shipbuilding here in this country. We've had some pretty spectacular ships built here in Savannah. We had Liberty ships built here. Folks, Liberty ships were built back during World War II. You see, we were losing a good deal of our merchant fleet to the great naval battle going on in the Atlantic Ocean. Our ships were being sunk by these German U-boats. Well, President Franklin Roosevelt decided he wanted to increase the size of our merchant fleet. He actually said he wanted to build merchant ships faster than the Germans could sink them. So they commissioned shipyards across the country to build these merchant ships, called them Liberty ships. They hired a guy named Kaiser from the automotive industry to come and oversee this project. He's famous for the Hudson automobile. But what they asked Kaiser to do was take what they were doing in the automotive plants and make it work as a practical application here in shipbuilding. So they installed railway systems in these shipyards and turned these shipyards basically into assembly line production facilities for these merchant ships. They would build these ships in sections, and as they got further and further along the assembly line, these sections would get larger and larger. One of the final stages was to weld all of these sections together and then launch the ship. Folks, they had gotten so efficient at doing this, as they were launching one ship, the sections for the next ship were literally being moved into position, readying it for that final stage before launch. One of the goals of this program was to actually build these ships so inexpensively that one trip overseas would pay for the cost of construction of this ship. Now, they built thousands of these Liberty ships across the country. A couple of hundred of them were built down here in Georgia. Here in Savannah, we built the Liberty ship Betsy Ross, which now sits about 28 miles off the coast of Georgia as an artificial reef. Folks, we also built some ships that were the first of their kind here in Savannah. We built the very first steamship to travel across any ocean anywhere in the world under its own power. Back in 1818, it was called the steamship Savannah. Now, this ship was new modern technology for its day. It actually looked like a hybrid of sorts. It looked like a sailing vessel with two big side paddle wheels on it. It had a 90 horsepower steam engine and a boiler. Well, the most impressive feat of this modern technology was not just that 90 horsepower steam engine and boiler, it was actually the paddle wheels themselves. You see, they were retractable. That way they could draw them in and operate as a sailing ship without the added drag. Or they could deploy those wheels and use that little steam engine to run it as a steamship. This was such interesting new technology for its day that President James Monroe came down here to Savannah to check this ship out. On May 22nd of 1818, the Savannah left the port here and took a 27-day voyage across the Atlantic Ocean, landing in Liverpool, England, becoming the very first steamship to travel across any ocean anywhere in the world under its own power. After leaving Liverpool, they did a little tour of Northern Europe to show off their new ship. They stopped in Hamburg, Germany, Stockholm, Sweden, and St. Petersburg, Russia. Then they came on back here to the States. They realized there wasn't much call for transatlantic passenger voyages at the time, so they converted the Savannah into a cargo ship and ran port-to-port cargo up and down the East Coast, well, until she was lost in a terrible storm in November of 1821. Now, the importance of the milestone that this ship stood for maritime history is so great that the date of her maiden voyage, May 22nd, is now today our National Maritime Day. Folks, back in 1861, we actually built the very first ironclad warship for the Confederate forces. It was called the CSS Georgia, or Confederate Steamship Georgia, and it was built pretty much right about where that bridge now stands. At the time, that was the mouth of the Ogeechee Canal and home to the old Confederate shipyards. Now, there is a little bit of a story behind this one, folks. You see, in the 1860s, the Union Navy set up a blockade